Greetings and good Wednesday morning, the 8th of February 2023. Good God, where does this time go? I always do that because if you're new to my channel, which I'm guessing not too many people are, but in the event you are new to my channel, I always like to point out today's date, followed by the statement that it is indeed the third decade of the 21st century. I always do that because I always find it fascinating as far as where the country's at, where society's at, where the globe is at, what sort of things are we dealing with versus where people had predicted us to be and where they predicted society to be, and whether or not we're advancing, going backwards, what have you. My channel was designed with the intent to be relatively neutral, to talk about anything from socio-political to nerdy, geeky topics, whatever the case. Just whether you want to call it a safe space or not, just a platform, right? And one of the biggest things I love to do is if anybody takes the time to watch my video, but more importantly, leave a comment. I love to read the comments out loud and react and respond to them. So without further ado, my one and loyal viewer, Stace, provided some commentary on my last video. This is why we need more prominent third-party options. Speaking of the political parties, I couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, from my limited understanding, the parties right now are currently so heavily backed by large entities, large industries, that until larger entities like, say, that of an Amazon or whatnot could potentially fund a third-party option, I'm not saying Amazon in general, but somebody who can see the faults and the flaws in both parties and, potentially support third-party candidates. I don't know that we're going to go that route. But what do you got? You got some more stuff here, right? So let's keep going. I've been enjoying The Rookie and enjoying that it's not really a Nathan Fillion show, but an actual ensemble cast. One of my favorite episodes was Season 3, Episode 6, where Nolan, Nathan Fillion, was taking an ethics class and couldn't decide whether or not to let the class know he was a police officer. The set no longer uses live rounds, blanks, etc. due to what happened on the set of the movie Rust. This breaks my heart because Jensen Ackles was supposed to be in Rust. Essentially what I was referring to there, for anybody new to the channel, is my wife and I can't really get into newer content with the exception of maybe Yellowstone and The Rookie and maybe some stuff that's more sci-fi related, where if they're in the future and they're entertaining different concepts in the future, then so be it. But modern day stuff trying to overly reflect content that I'm not necessarily on board with has been very rough. To put it bluntly, I'm not woke, so to speak, so I don't need to be overwhelmed with wokeness. And when I tune in, I'm also trying to tune out. When I'm trying to tune out all of the modern world's nonsensities, I don't need it reflected back to me in my fiction. And the problem I had with The Rookie is that every time they wish to address the average gun owner, they make them out to be like the absolute worst stereotype of like some white male redneck hillbilly militia type, burn down the bomb, just whatever you want to consider to be some sort of negative stereotype, like, because apparently that's all that lives in California, let alone LA, is bumbling militia, white right-wing supremacist types. Whatever. That's my only chief concern. I could try to elaborate further on some of these comments. I mean, the whole third-party thing, I've done that quite a bit. I'm very anti-Democratic Party, but that doesn't mean by default I'm a Republican. I'm not necessarily in love with the Republican Party. In the absence of having a viable third-party option, I will end up voting for the Republican as a default, because even if that Republican drinks the Kool-Aid and toes the party line, I tend to find it less damaging to society and to the country. That's just my opinion, but I don't find them to be the solution. I just think Democrats are definitely not. But it brings me to a different point. a buddy of mine that I graduated high school with, and I say buddy, although we never hung out in high school. We had a couple of classes together. We were cool. We were friendly with one another. We never hung out. We're friends on Facebook, and this friend of mine is Asian, Taiwanese. I don't remember if he said he was born in Taiwan or if he was born in the States, but socially he was a bit more higher up the food chain than I was. He was a co-captain of our football team. Our football team was undefeated going into the state championships, lost the state championship due to poor coaching, in my opinion. He went to Purdue University. I'm not going to give you his name because I don't quite frankly have his permission, and I wouldn't want to do that to him without his permission. But he posted something on his Facebook page, and the reason why I'm talking about it is I'm getting ready to turn 47 this year, and in 47 years of life, I've seen more than some, less than others. I've done more than some, less than others. And in my personal estimation, just the way that I view the world, I receive information, I process and interpret information, the way that I see the world is we voted a president into office based on his physical characteristics, not necessarily his qualifications. He changed the physical appearance of the office. He was a well-spoken candidate, and I believe that was why he was voted into office. And during his tenure, as in Barack Obama, during his 2 terms, there were a few opportunities where he could have responded in a way that didn't throw more gasoline on the fire, that didn't further inflame ideas and concepts and, for all intents and purposes, relations. I don't know what it's like to be anything other than a heterosexual Caucasian male. I don't know what that's like. All right? As a Caucasian heterosexual male, I do know what it's like to be persecuted for my skin color, you know, when I've been surrounded by a group of individuals that do not share my complexion. I've been in brown neighborhoods where I stood out like a sore thumb, and if I was not escorted or with somebody of the brown persuasion, I was subject to harassment and whatnot. I dealt with it when I was stationed in Hawaii. You know, if you're in the wrong neighborhood and you're a haole, you know, you're not welcome. I've dealt with it in black neighborhoods where, once again, if you're not black and you're not escorted or with somebody, I've dealt with it, and that's been my experience. And that's an honest to God legit experience. I've had that. I've also had to experience where, quite frankly, in my soon to be 47 years, the only people that are not allowed to be proud of their skin color is white. Everybody else is physically allowed, almost authorized, almost accepted and praised if they demonstrate pride in their color. And I get that this goes back to some unfortunate, nonsensical shit, pardon my language, that took place years and years ago, well before I was born, well before I could be responsible for anything that I've ever done. And why do I bring all this up? Because my friend posted this. Taking a break from dad jokes today because this is not funny. I was told once, not by a person of color, that racism only exists when you go looking for it. And then an emoji with, I think, an eye roll or something. Well, today at a Dunkin' Donuts in Joliet, grabbing coffee, and a man, non-Dunkin' employee, came up to me and said, "Tell your people we are going to shoot that balloon down." My response was, "Okay, I hope that made you feel better." And then he walked away. I guess I went looking for racism when I went to get coffee. Either way, I think most of you reading this are my people, so I'm telling you that this man says the balloon will be shot down. Okay. What I like about this is my friend did not describe this man's immutable characteristics. Just that this man, operating with a tremendous sense of ignorance, had the audacity to say that to my friend, who for all intents and purposes, as far as we know, was born in America, is an American citizen, speaks fluent English. I don't even know if he speaks a different language, because once again, I'm not going to give you his name. But let's just assume for 1 second, for the purpose of this video and the purpose of this conversation, let's assume that this was a white guy, because My friend doesn't mention age, he doesn't mention ethnicity, just that this guy came up to him, and it's not the first time my friend has posted something like this on Facebook. Once before, it was something to do with COVID and how he and his family was approached about COVID. And I don't personally like bigotry at all. I don't like ignorance, willful ignorance. There's the unwillful ignorance where you just don't know something. But then there's willful ignorance where you know better and you choose not to act and conduct yourself better. And I'm not a fan of that. But for the arguments, for the purpose of this channel and argument's sake, let's assume it was a middle-aged white male, right? And every time I get upset and every time I get pissed off about all the virtue signaling against white males or white people can't do this, white people can't do that. Racism only exists in one color spectrum, and that's white people. Nobody else are allowed to be racist, all right? Every time I try to advocate for the fact that racism is colorblind, anybody can be a racist. Anybody of any ethnicity, any skin color can be racist towards anybody else. We take it under the context in the United States of America that based on previous bigotry that took place by white settlers, white colonialists, white expansion, whatever the case may be, because we simplified it within the white community, you were Polish, Irish, German, Italian, etc. But then externally, white people as a whole also would sometimes band together and discriminate against others. It's god awful. It's a scar that will forever exist on the foundations of this country, and it's god awful. And every time I try to advocate that level of racism that took place from like the 1960s and earlier, and the residual effects that still lingered up until like the 80s and the 90s by people who were from that era, every time I say that was horrible, but people like me, people that were potentially born a little bit later in life, have never partaken in that didn't promulgate that didn't continue to push that agenda, that systemic racism and all that. And every time I try to advocate, like, no, yeah, potentially you have to go looking for it. Some bullshit like this happens, and I'm left here gobsmacked like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Because some ignorant prick, some ignorant excuse for a human being, some pig in a human suit, just went up to my buddy who's minding his own business, and then assumes that my buddy must be an agent for, I don't know, the Chinese government for all I know. Assuming that my buddy's Chinese, not knowing whether he's Cambodian, Laotian, Korean, Mongolian, just, well, you're a yellow man, so that's your balloon, and, it's that kind of shit that interferes with progress, and it adds fuel to the fire on the left and gives them justification to be like, see, systemic white racism. And my buddy, God bless him, didn't even point out this gentleman's immutable characteristics other than to address him as a man. Didn't address his age, hair color, physical appearance, just that a man came up to him and said this. And I applaud him for that. Now, I'm knowing this guy as well as I do, I am almost 100% positive that it was not his intention whatsoever to ambiguously leave it blank, knowing that everybody would automatically assume and fill in the blank that, oh, middle-aged white guy. But he didn't. He left it blank because to him, that wasn't the point. The point was ignorance, and the point was racism. And I say this because I don't know what my buddy's experience was like in high school. I don't know what it was like in junior high and elementary school. I only went to high school with him for 4 years, and we graduated together. We were not in all of the same classes. We were not in the same social groups, not for any other reason than we just weren't. I was not on the football team. I was not as athletically gifted as he was. And perhaps maybe we just had limited social engagements because we weren't in that many classes together. But other than that, there was no like real reason like why we couldn't have hung out or whatever. I mean, growing up, bouncing from apartment complex to apartment complex, I had all kinds of friends of all kinds of ethnic persuasions, and so help me God if we did not care. We were kids and we just wanted to play and hang out. Shoot hoops if we had access to a basketball hoop. throw a football, play a game of touch football, play baseball, play video games, play with our toys. We just didn't care. All right? And I apologize for going on and on like this, because I say all this, I don't know what his experiences were like prior to that. I don't know what his experience was like in high school. I know when I was in high school, I felt that black culture was very dominant in high school, and that the black culture was the overwhelming dominant theme in our high school. Although looking through my yearbook, at least our senior class wasn't nearly as diverse as maybe I thought it was. I don't know what his experiences have been like in college or post-college. I don't know what his experience was like when he worked. But in the last few years, he's posted some things where he's had some adverse experiences just based on his ethnic persuasion because of, unfortunately, all the things that are happening with China. And it truly sickens me, because if you know this guy, then you know he's a quality person. You know that he's just going about his daily life, and he's got some other challenges he's trying to deal with. And I feel if I express those, I'm going to dime him out. And I don't wish to do that. So, I don't know. I don't know. I'm frustrated. I'm going to close out this Word document here. I'm frustrated. I'm angry, because the general theme in America right now is that we live in a white-dominated society where white takes care of white, and in doing so, white has purposely made it a mission to put people of non-white complexion down while taking care of all other whites. Personally, for me, that has not been my experience. Everything I have, everything I own, everything I'm capable of doing, I've had to work for. I've had to earn. All right, I was not offered scholarships. I didn't get to go play college football. I had to join the military. I had to serve in the military honorably in order to get my educational benefits. I had to serve 20 years or more in the military to get my retirement. For beating up my body over the course of 20 years, getting hit by IEDs, getting shot at, falling off of walls, trying to climb over, having tried to climb over walls after being shot at with bullets and RPGs, after surviving numerous explosions. Some things I look back on and I'm actually quite surprised I did survive. I have disability from the VA that also complements my salary or my retirement, and then I also work for a living. All right, so I also still have to go to work for a living, and it provides me the opportunity to take care of my family. I didn't get retirement from the military because I was white. I got retirement from the military because I did my time. I didn't get disability from the VA because I'm white. Nowhere on the disability application is your ethnicity. Nowhere on your retirement is your ethnicity. None of that has anything to do with anything. So I'd like to believe that we live in this world where, people are trying to embellish and inflate and try to stir the pot. And I want to believe that, and then shit like that happens, and I'm just at a loss for words, because I feel like it runs contrary to everything I'm trying to say, that it is not as bad as the 60s. There is no systemic racism. It's and to his credit, I do believe in the sense that if you go looking for racism, you will find it. If your mission is to find it, you will find it. All right? Your mind will actively seek it out. However, in that context, the way he uses it, he wasn't looking for it. It came to him. And there's nothing I can say to defend it other than I applaud the way he handled it. Look, that's all I got. I mean, I could keep going, but I'm at the risk of going to 20 minutes. Clearly, you can see I'm upset by the whole thing. So you know the deal. And if you don't, here's the deal. I don't care if you hit the notification bell. I don't care if you subscribe. I don't care if you like, dislike. I'm only interested in creating conversations. That's it. All right? So if you leave a comment, I really appreciate it. And I promise you, I will read your comment out loud. I will respond, and I will react to your comment. And if you do, I greatly appreciate it. You're awesome. Till next time.